In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, warm greetings from Egypt and from the members of parliament of Egypt, and congratulations to the Moroccan people who are steeped in history, to the Moroccan government, king and people for yesterday's win, and we send you our best wishes for tomorrow and the days to come to achieve even more victories. Truly, to see the smiles on the faces of all Arabs. This smile comes from the bottom of the heart after waiting for such a long time and following the spring revolutions in a number of countries. And by the grace of the Almighty, this smile comes from the efforts of the Kingdom of Morocco, and while we're here in the Kingdom of Morocco. Today, as we meet thanks to a commendable initiative by Brother Migliore Gennari, who made this proposal to hold this first economic forum, parliamentary forum, and it has been held here in Marrakesh. And we can see in the current intricate, complex circumstances that no one that is in the world knows exactly where it will be taking us. These circumstances that we're talking about today, I would like to keeping in mind those circumstances, I would like to thank him for his initiative, and also to commend and thank the brother and friend Nam Mayara, Speaker of the House of Councillors, and also to extend a warm welcome to all the brothers and sisters, and especially the Sakr Ghabashi and all participants, be they ministers, representatives of parliaments, speakers, and international organizations. As you know, we are facing a major challenge, a challenge that I myself have, about which I'm wondering when we go back to our countries and when they ask us, when our colleagues, our members of parliament ask us, what have you come up with? What have you achieved as far as this forum is concerned? And they are suffering. They are suffering from inflation. They're suffering from skyrocketing prices, problems with supply chains, and they have problems with energy prices. They are still suffering from the impacts and repercussions of the COVID-19. So I had the honor of being a founding member of this assembly more than 15 years ago. We talked about the dream of achieving the real cooperation between the two shores of the Mediterranean. And when I was listening to the heads of states, that when they talked that the future of the North is in the South and the future of the South is in the North, that was the general landscape. That was the general motto that brought us together. But I am still wondering, this happened some 30 years ago. What have we achieved? What were the hopes? And why certain things were not achieved? These are the regions, these are the questions that we have to ask. Sorry, we had dreams, but some of them have not been achieved. Now we have a very complex crisis. And if we were to stop at all the proposals and all the requests that we submitted in the past, if they had been properly addressed, we would not have been in such a situation. You know that the South has resources, has potential, has skills, and we have to leverage those. Now is the time to do that. And you know that your forum today is different from all other conferences. We are celebrating a complementarity of a different nature that brings together the Asian, the African, and the European continents. This means that there is a new meaning, and there are now expectations to reconsider our methodologies, to reconsider our priorities. This should not be just speeches. It should not be limited to just speeches. We have to draw lessons from what happened in the past. And if we were to go through what was achieved and the dreams that we had, you will see the gap. In the Sharm el-Sheikh conference, which was attended by 153 countries, Egypt came up with an agenda for the discussion, and it talked about some necessities that had to be lived up to by the conference. And one of them, or the most important one, was to put the problems in their right context and to hold accountable all those that were concerned and involved in their sectors. The motto at Sharm el-Sheikh is that this is an implementation summit, and indeed it was an implementation summit. And one of its top priorities was to take into consideration the needs of developing countries and the resources that they were entitled to. The conference was successful because it came up with this fund, and it looked at the damage and the losses so that everyone could see their rights upheld. And we decided who should be paying what and who should be the beneficiaries. It was a successful conference, and people felt really what was at stake, what the problems involved were. This was a global conference that we wanted to draw lessons from. Just as this forum is important, and we have to draw lessons from it. So what is the future of partnership between the northern and the southern shores of the Mediterranean, and also the Gulf states and Africa? And as was pointed earlier, Africa is indeed the future, the continent of the future, the continent of the promising projects. And we in North Africa, we can be that link between Europe and Sub-Saharan Africa. This cannot be achieved unless we reconsider and revisit the strategy that we are trying to implement so that we address the problems that I mentioned earlier. Why couldn't we achieve the objectives that we were yearning for, and what to do in the future? And one of the key elements here is the problems relating to funding. But funding is, of course, important and interesting, but we have to have political will that welcomes this partnership. We need to know and be convinced that the entire world is changing, and that the global economic map is changing, and that the geopolitical map is changing. So where do we stand? And this means that we have to revisit our syllabi, our curricula, our work methods, and our policies. Africa is the continent on which a lot of hopes are pinned. After 4 days ago, in 4 days, the U.S. president is going to invite all heads of state of Africa to come to the U.S. for a summit. In the past, recently, Saudi Arabia, in the past, China and Japan were talking about Africa. So where does Europe stand as far as Europe is concerned? How about the Euro-Mediterranean partnership? Where does it stand as far as the African continent is concerned? we should not just limit ourselves to slogans, empty slogans. We need to have a clear strategy with implementation mechanisms to which we all commit. We have to know what is the added value that we can bring. We have to ensure good marketing of this, and we have to make sure we bring on board the parliaments. So these are major objectives. Education is a goal. How can we develop education? Industry is another objective. How can we promote that? Agriculture as well, and so on. So all of these aspects of daily life must have specific programs with a specific role assignments. And the best proof to this is the Chinese experience in Africa, when China thought of coming up with the Silk Road Initiative. It devoted $1 trillion for the achievements of this objective, which concerns 68 countries from China up to Europe. So they have thought on how to ensure a presence, how to fund, and how to be in all of these markets and to achieve its objectives. These are the actual action plans, efficient action plans that we should derive inspiration from. There are funding institutions and financial institutions in Europe, major institutions in Europe. There are skills, there is expertise that we can leverage in order to come up with a new plan that we commit to, all of us. I don't want to take too much of your time, and there were a lot of people who took the floor before me, and we have to keep in mind what they said. And we want this, we really look forward to the actual implementation of promising, ambitious plan so as to build on the creative, innovative technological skills available and the human resources that exist both in the north and south of the Mediterranean. I want to also talk about a specific important question which concerns the opinions that we hear and the interference that exists in the internal affairs of some states. This is rejected. There is no country today that allows others to interfere in their internal affairs. This is one of the key reasons for the destruction that happened in Syria, in Libya, in Lebanon, and other countries, and which we see on a daily basis. We have to make sure that when we talk about human rights, we all support real human rights, and those who want to consider or to use human rights as a pretext to interfere with the internal affairs of countries, we have to make sure that they have no place among us. We have to ensure that human rights are not just accepting the viewpoints of others. Human rights is a full-fledged system, and Egypt has managed to present this in a strategic way before the eyes of the global community. And I want to confirm to you all that there are people who want to destroy things. They want to use fake news and also data that is doctored to introduce or to serve their objectives. I want to make sure that we reject such practices. We want to build. We want to be positive. We want to give our people the best living conditions possible. We want to work with you and through you so that in the future this conference be an implementation conference, that we do not lose sight of our priorities, to make sure that we keep in mind that we can be creative, we can innovate, we can show political will in order to build and to achieve a lot. Thank you so much.